All right, so today we're going to be replacing my factory rear bumper on my 2024 GMC Sierra 2500 with Westin's new Pro Series bumper. Special shout out to them for hooking us up with this bumper, and excited to see what it looks like on the truck. It's got some really cool features. First of all, it's relatively the same shape as a factory bumper. You have a little bit of different angle here, but it comes with built-in LED lights. You have all of your factory cutouts for your trailer lights, your spare tire thing here. You also have flush mounted LED cutouts, which you can purchase separately from Westin. It also comes with these cool blockout plates that you could put in place of that if you wanted to. But should be a relatively straightforward install, so let's get started. All right, so I had the factory bumper removed, and the easiest thing for me was just to set them both up here on sawhorses and work on transferring the wiring harness over. So I've disconnected the factory wiring harness. I have all of my brackets and nuts and bolts laid out from Westin. It comes with a good instruction manual with everything numbered. So I've removed my factory sensors. And one thing to note is you're just going to use the sensor itself, not the bezel that is around it from the factory. So I'm leaving that in the bumper. And what Westin does is they supply these L-shaped brackets here. It's just basically a hold down for those. And then a carriage bolt, a lock washer, a flat washer, and a nut. So I'm going to work on getting these situated, and one important thing to note is that you leave them in the exact same orientation as what you have from the factory. So you can see on each side of the license plate, they point outwards. And then I have another under there and another under here that I'll work on transferring over to the respective holes on the new Westin bumper. All right, I've got all the sensors installed. It's just a 10 millimeter nut, carriage bolt, and the L bracket. A couple things I'd recommend. So press down pretty hard while you're tightening this, because these sensors are rubber mounted and they'll wiggle a lot if you don't, and they'll be too loose in the hole. Another thing is switch one at a time. So take one out of the factory bumper, put it in the exact same spot on the new Westin bumper. That way you're not mixing things around, and you can assure that everything maintains the same orientation. So next we have the blind spot sensors off the factory bumper that'll go here. Westin provides several different brackets for mounting that up there, so we'll get that installed next. All right, so for your side blind spot sensors here, you're gonna have to remove it from the factory plastic bracket that was, mounted in here somehow like that. You're gonna have to take it out of that housing. And then you use this plate that's provided by Westin, that there, and then you just have Allen hex head bolts that go through, and 8 millimeter bolts here to hold the plate down. So now we'll just get the other side, and then we should be just about ready to mount back onto the truck. One more thing that I'll note is before you mount your sensor to this plate, you can see there's a bit of a space between it. Make sure that you mount the sensor to the plate first, then mount the plate to the bumper. Otherwise, you won't be able to get on the back side to get the bolts in there. The next step is to install the bumper bracket to the bumper using the supplied hardware, flat washer, lock washer, nuts and bolts. And the way that you can determine each side is because of that angle there fits in the angle of the bumper. You line up with those 3 holes and get everything fairly tight. I wouldn't crank down on it yet because we're gonna have to do some adjustments up and down once we get it onto the truck to make sure everything's level and close enough tucked into the truck. All right, I have everything plugged back in along the wiring harness. I've gone ahead and done this ahead of time before I get the bumper back on the truck, and I've gone ahead and zip tied some stuff out of the way because this is going to need to be flat and flush to go up against the bracket on the truck, and we don't want these to get pinched in there. you do end up having to cut the factory wiring harness to splice into the LED lights. It's not necessarily something I'm crazy about, but you can always go back to stock if you had to, so I tried to leave enough there to go back to it. Now I just need to get the spare tire piece back in here, which is here. Once I get that back in, we'll be ready to set this on the truck. All right, once you get everything back on the truck, you have 2 bolts here. Gone ahead and got everything centered on the truck, and then tighten these 2 down, and then 2 on the other side. Then afterwards, I go back and plug in all of my plugs, get everything tidied up, and then next step will be putting the LED lights in it. All right, now finished up getting this mounted on the truck, tidying up all the wires with zip ties. I got everything leveled out and side to side evened up. So now at this point, if you didn't buy the LED lights from Westin, you can put the block off plates in here, but I am gonna install the LEDs. So the FM6 lights from Westin, they are flood beam lights that go in there. And here's the part number, and I also list a link to these as well on Westin's website. But these should look really good. They have them to where you tap into the factory reverse light wire to where when you put it in reverse, these lights come on. I think that's actually really cool, probably the easiest way to do them, but I would rather have it to where, because I already know I'm gonna need these at nighttime if I'm working on something behind the truck and I don't want to have it in reverse, I'm going to wire these to a switch. So I'll see what all's involved in that when I get to it. All right, so I finally got the bumper lights wired up on my truck. You can see here I wired it to just a small switch inside the cab, just a push on, push off button. The way that Westin has it set up from out of the box is to tap into your factory reverse light wire, which is much easier, but I wanted the ability to turn these on and off without having to put it in reverse. So take a look at it. So you can see they put out a great deal of light. I'm really impressed with how bright they are so far. It'll be great for if I'm working on stuff behind the truck at nighttime, or my windows are pretty dark, so being able to back up without having to roll my windows down. Anyways, check them out. I'll put the link at the top of this video for you to go directly to the bumper and the lights themselves. And special thanks again to Westin for hooking us up with this.